After my father's funeral, my husband threw my stuff out to marry his mistress, unaware I inherited my dad's $10 billion empire. He didn't just abandon her, he erased her, right after she buried the only man who ever truly protected her. While the echoes of the funeral bells still hung in the air, Emily came home to find her suitcase on the porch and her wedding photo shattered on the floor. Inside, her husband Daniel was laughing with his mistress, the same woman who once toasted at their anniversary. "Vanessa's moving in," he said coldly. "You'll figure something out. You were dead weight anyway." Those were the words that cut deeper than the grave she had just walked away from. On the day Emily lost her father, she also lost the illusion of love, loyalty, and home. Her world fell silent except for the wind that carried a whisper from the past. Protect the legacy, even from wolves in family's clothing. What Daniel never knew was that a woman he threw out carried a sealed envelope, one that held the keys to a $10 billion empire. A legacy he mocked, yet would soon kneel before. He thought he'd traded up for glitter. He didn't know he'd married his downfall. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's the rise of a daughter who turned grief into power, silence into strategy, and heartbreak into history. Sometimes the empire you try to bury is the one that will bury your pride. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting her father's final wish fade unheard. But when you click that button, you stand with every woman told she's dead weight and every daughter who rose to honor her name. Subscribe now and tell us where you're watching from, so Emily knows the world still believes in her strength. The rain had stopped, but the cold wind still bit through the black silk of Emily Turner Cole's dress as she stood before her father's coffin. The chapel courtyard was almost empty now, just a few scattered chairs, the sound of a distant bell, and the smell of damp lilies. The sky hung heavy, gray, and unkind, like the silence that had followed her all day. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the white rose pinned to the coffin. The wood gleamed, polished, perfect, expensive, just as her father would have wanted. Everything about him had been precise, disciplined, structured. He built Turner Logistics from nothing and always said, "Order is love in disguise." But today, there was no order, only emptiness. When the pastor had spoken, his voice broke on one sentence, her father's own words. "Protect the legacy, even from wolves in family's clothing." The phrase kept echoing inside her like a warning bell. She didn't yet understand what it meant. Not fully. Emily was his only child, his entire world. Her mother had died when she was 13, and from that day, her father became both anchor and compass. He taught her how to calculate margins, how to shake hands firmly, and how to spot liars by the twitch in their smile. "Integrity is a lonely friend," he used to say. Now loneliness was all she had. From behind her, a man cleared his throat. Mr. Grant, her father's old lawyer, gray-haired and steady-voiced, stepped closer. "Your father asked me to give you this." He handed her a sealed envelope, the kind that carried secrets. "He said you'd know when to open it. Take your time, Mrs. Cole." She nodded, though her heart thudded hard. "When I'm ready," she thought. Ready for what? As the few remaining guests drifted away, she noticed something painful. Her husband, Daniel Cole, was nowhere to be seen. He'd promised to come, but the promise had vanished like all the others lately. Even his mother had sent a half-hearted text. "He's busy with clients. You'll understand." Emily didn't understand. She just stood in the cold courtyard, fingers tightening around the envelope. Her cousin, who had offered to help with arrangements, had already slipped off after taking a few polite photos. It seemed grief was hers alone to carry. The wind grew stronger, scattering petals from the funeral wreaths. One landed at her feet, a pale yellow lily, her father's favorite. She picked it up gently and whispered, "I'll protect it, Papa. I promise." But even as she said it, a shiver ran through her chest, a faint dread she couldn't name. She looked once more at the coffin being lowered into the earth. A single tear slid down her cheek, cutting through her calm mask. For the first time all day, she allowed herself to whisper the truth she'd been holding in. "He's gone, and I have no one left." As she turned to leave, thunder rolled far away, soft, low, almost like laughter. Mr. Grant's last words echoed in her ear. "When you're ready." Emily pressed the envelope to her chest. Somewhere deep inside, she already knew what waited inside would change everything. And far across the city, in the house she still called home, another storm was gathering, one that would not wait for her to be ready. The gate creaked before she even touched it. Emily Turner Cole stood frozen at her own doorstep, suitcase handle slipping in her damp hand. The same house where she'd spent 5 years building a life with Daniel now echoed with laughter and clinking glasses. Music thumped faintly through the walls, careless, bright, and cruel. Her father had been buried only hours ago. Yet inside, her husband was celebrating. She opened the door. The smell of champagne and expensive perfume hit her first. Then her heart stopped. Her living room, once her sanctuary, looked like a showroom after a clearance sale. Boxes labeled Emily's stuff were stacked by the door. Her dresses, shoes, framed photos, all lined up like they were evidence of a crime. The recliner, the slippers, and the TV. Remote her father's gifts sat untouched, neatly placed like relics of a routine now erased. Daniel stood by the kitchen counter, golf club in hand, grinning at Vanessa Wright, his new obsession, and her former assistant. Vanessa was pouring champagne into crystal glasses, her laughter sharp as glass. She wore Emily's silk robe. "Daniel?" Emily's voice cracked but didn't tremble. "What's going on?" He looked at her with a smirk that carried no trace of the man she once knew. "You're back early. We thought the funeral would run longer." Her eyes darted to Vanessa, who was now draped across the sofa where Emily used to read. Emily took a step forward. "Why are my things packed?" Daniel twirled the golf club like a toy. "Because Vanessa's moving in. You'll figure something out. You've always been resourceful." He paused, then added with a mocking smile. "Dead weight shouldn't take up space." The words sliced clean through her. The last breath she'd been holding broke in her chest. From the hallway, another voice, his mother's, floated in. Margaret Cole, elegant as ever in her pearls and judgment, leaned against the doorframe. "Maybe if you'd been less boring, he'd stay," she said, eyes full of scorn. "Men like excitement, Emily. Not funerals and silence." Emily's grip tightened around the envelope Mr. Grant had given her earlier. The seal was still unbroken. For a moment, she imagined tearing it open right there, screaming the truth she didn't yet know, but she didn't. She simply breathed. Her gaze fell on the mantel. The wedding photo, her in lace, him in tuxedo, now lay face down. The glass cracked. Beneath it, ashes from the fireplace. She bent down and lifted it gently. "So this is what love turns into," she whispered. Vanessa chuckled. "Don't be dramatic. You'll be fine. Maybe start over somewhere small, with fewer expectations." Daniel added, "Oh, and don't forget to leave your house keys. Vanessa and I have plans to redecorate." Emily looked around one last time. The home she'd filled with patience and laughter now belonged to strangers. Her slippers were still by the recliner, placed neatly where her father had once sat during his visits. She saw him there for a moment, a ghost in her memory, smiling, proud, telling her, "Keep your dignity even when they try to take your name." She straightened her back. The tears that had gathered didn't fall. "You'll regret this, Daniel. Maybe not today, but someday you will," Daniel scoffed. "Don't make threats you can't afford, Emily. You're nothing without your father's money. And now, that's gone too." For a second, something flickered in her eyes, quiet power hidden beneath sorrow. "Maybe," she said softly, "but I still have something you'll never understand." He laughed. "What's that?" She met his gaze. "Peace." Emily turned toward the door. As she lifted her single suitcase, a gust of wind from the open window knocked the champagne glass from Vanessa's hand. It shattered across the marble floor. Daniel shouted, "Watch it! That's crystal!" Vanessa frowned. "It's just glass." Emily paused at the doorway, the envelope pressed to her chest. "Yes," she said quietly, "just glass." Then she stepped out, the door closing behind her with a soft final click. Outside, the night was cold again. Streetlights glowed pale over the driveway. She placed her suitcase in the backseat of her car and looked once at the house, laughter still spilling from its walls. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. She opened it. "Mrs. Cole, this is Mr. Harris, your father's estate attorney. We need to meet urgently regarding your father's final instructions." Emily exhaled, the pain in her chest shifting into something steadier, sharper. She looked down at the sealed envelope in her hand, tracing its edges like a map. Tomorrow she would call the lawyer. But tonight, under the same moon that had shone over her father's grave, Emily Turner Cole made a silent vow. She would not cry again for people who celebrated her suffering. Inside that envelope was something Daniel could never imagine, and when the time came, the world would remember her name. And far away, in a glass office under Turner Holdings, a red light blinked a signal that her father's secret plan had just awakened. The storm outside seemed to mirror the one inside Emily Turner Cole's chest. Rain hammered against the tall windows of Mr. Harris's law office, the sound sharp and restless. The lights were dim, the air heavy with the smell of polished wood and old paper. Every tick of the wall clock felt louder than the last. Mr. Harris sat across from her, silver-haired, calm, deliberate. He had been her father's trustee and estate counsel for over 20 years. His office was a world of order books aligned perfectly, pens placed by size, and a single green lamp glowing softly on his desk. Emily gripped the sealed envelope she'd carried since the funeral. "Mr. Grant said my father wanted me to open this here," she said quietly. Mr. Harris gave a slow nod. "Your father trusted only two people in his final days, Grant and me. He wanted the truth revealed when you were strong enough to hear it." She hesitated, then broke the seal. Inside lay a letter written in her father's careful, slanted handwriting. Her eyes moved quickly across the words, her lips parting as she read. "My dearest Emily, I sold Turner Logistics weeks before my final illness took hold. The proceeds, $10 billion, are now secured in the Turner Legacy Trust, under your sole control. Do not reveal ownership for 90 days. Observe hearts. Watch who remains loyal when they believe you have nothing. Love will show its true face in scarcity." Her breath caught. "10 billion?" she whispered. Mr. Harris nodded once. "He made the transfer personally. Every cent has already cleared. You are now the legal heir to Turner Global Holdings, Mrs. Cole. You just can't disclose it yet." Emily pressed her palm against her chest, struggling to process the enormity of what she was hearing. Only hours ago, she'd been thrown out of her own home like trash. Now she was one of the wealthiest women in the world. Her mind spun back. Her father's study, years ago. The smell of ink and wood polish. She was 19, still grieving her mother's death. Her father placed a thick ledger before her. "Test hearts before you share crowns," he said, tapping the Turner family seal carved into the wood. "Love without respect becomes debt without end." Those words, forgotten for years, now echoed like a prophecy. Back in the present, Emily blinked away tears. "He knew," she murmured. "He knew Daniel wasn't loyal." Mr. Harris leaned forward. "Your husband's debts are deep. He owes millions in private loans and company shares. When the truth surfaces, he'll come crawling back." Her expression hardened. "Then make sure every door to my trust is sealed. Cut off any trace of his name, any chance of his claim. He doesn't deserve a dime." "I already have," Mr. Harris replied. "Your father insisted on that clause before he passed." Emily took the pen, he slid across the table and signed the confirmation documents. The ink moved smoothly under her hand, ending in a single, perfect period. For the first time in days, her pulse steadied. When she set the pen down, it clicked softly, a sound like closure. Mr. Harris studied her. "What will you do now?" She lifted her eyes, calm but burning. "Exactly what he taught me, observe loyalty." Outside, thunder cracked again, shaking the window pane. Emily looked out at the rain, her reflection faintly visible against the glass, a woman reborn, wrapped in grief but laced with steel. Her father's words echoed once more. "Test hearts before you share crowns." As she left the office, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It read, "Daniel and Vanessa just got married." She stared at the screen for a long moment, the edges of her lips curling not in pain, but in resolve. The game had just begun. And somewhere in the city, beneath a glittering chandelier, Daniel Cole lifted a glass to toast his new life, unaware that the empire beneath his feet already belonged to the woman he'd thrown away. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The motel door slammed shut behind her, shaking the thin wooden frame. For a second, Emily Turner Cole just stood there, chest heaving, suitcase in hand, the sound of her heartbeat louder than the traffic outside. The air inside smelled of damp carpet and cheap air freshener. The single lamp flickered once before, settling into a weak yellow glow that barely reached the frayed curtains. She dropped the suitcase beside the bed and sank onto the hard mattress. The springs creaked under her weight, the sound lonely and metallic. For the first time that day, she let her shoes fall to the floor. Her feet ached. Her soul did too. On the small bedside table lay the only possessions that mattered now: her father's sealed documents, the flash drive Mr. Harris had given her, and a worn wedding photo she couldn't yet throw away. She picked up the photo. In it, Daniel was smiling, his arm around her shoulders, his eyes full of promises that had turned into poison. The silence in the room was sharp. Then faintly, from the flash drive came a familiar voice. She had pressed play almost without realizing it. "You were always my rightful heir, Bella," her father's voice said, warm and steady even through the static. "They mocked your kindness, but you'll lead the Turner Group now. This company is yours. My faith is yours." Tears blurred her vision. For months, she had doubted her worth, let Daniel's cruelty sink into her bones. But her father, he had seen something she had forgotten existed. Attached to the drive were the legal documents. Transfer of ownership: Turner Global Holdings, 100%, to Emily Turner Cole via A. Turner Holdings. The paper trembled in her hand. $10 billion. Entire corporations, thousands of employees, and every share hers. The lamp glowed softly over the papers, its light forming a perfect circle on the bedspread. In that circle, Emily saw something new, a sunrise that belonged only to her. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but the screen caught her eye. A notification from social media: Daniel Cole and Vanessa Wright engaged. The image stabbed through her chest. Vanessa's hand rested on Daniel's chest, a massive diamond catching the light. The caption read, "Fresh start, grateful hearts." Emily exhaled slowly. Her hand stopped shaking. "You replaced me before the dirt even settled," she whispered. Her voice didn't crack this time. It was calm, almost too calm. She looked around the dim motel room again. No luxury, no silk sheets, no familiar scent of home. Just four walls, a lamp, and a destiny that had shifted entirely in her favor. One by one, she began organizing the documents into neat piles: trusts, subsidiaries, shell corporations, directives, the way her father taught her when she was a girl. The sharp sound of paper sliding over paper became her new rhythm. Outside, the wind howled against the window. Inside, the storm in her chest began to quiet. She didn't sleep easily, but she did sleep with purpose. For the first time in weeks, her mind wasn't spinning from pain, it was building something. "Precis. A plan." As the lamp's light dimmed to a soft glow, she whispered, "I won't shout. I'll wait. Let them think I've vanished." Her eyes closed, the envelope resting beneath her hand like a vow. And somewhere across town, in a mansion she once called home, Daniel's laughter rang out over the sound of clinking glasses. He had no idea that the woman he'd discarded was now his silent shadow, watching, waiting, and holding the empire beneath his feet. Tomorrow the storm would start to move, but not in the way Daniel expected. The flash of cameras exploded like fireworks. Click, click, click. The crowd outside the glass chapel shouted their congratulations as Daniel Cole and Vanessa Wright stepped out, hands clasped, smiles rehearsed. Behind them, white petals rained down like confetti, perfect, polished, fake. The tabloids were already screaming, "Daniel Cole marries Vanessa Wright Turner, family absent." The caption below, a photo of the couple, read, "The Empire of Love Reborn." Inside, the orchestra played louder to hide the murmurs. Some guests whispered about Emily Turner Cole, the wife who hadn't even been divorced a month before the new ceremony. Others looked uncomfortable, but Daniel and Vanessa basked in the attention like children under stage lights. "Smile wider," Vanessa whispered through her teeth. "They're watching," Daniel grinned, lifting his glass. "To a fresh start, no more dead weight." He said it loud enough for the cameras. Some guests chuckled politely, not knowing or pretending not to know what he meant. At a corner table, a man in a dark gray suit stirred his drink without looking up. His name was Mr. Harris, estate lawyer for the late Mr. Turner. Officially, he was there as a guest investor. Unofficially, he carried something far more important, a sealed envelope addressed to Mr. Turner, Wright, Vanessa's father. When the waiter passed, Harris rose calmly and crossed the Brody, marble floor. Vanessa's father, a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and proud eyes, looked up in surprise as Harris bowed slightly. "Sir," Harris said softly, "a message from A. Turner Holdings. Urgent business matter." Mr. Wright frowned. "Now? At my daughter's wedding?" "I'm afraid it couldn't wait." The lawyer set the envelope before him and walked away without another word. Curious, Mr. Wright opened it. Inside were legal documents, an acquisition notice stating that several of his construction projects were now under review and ownership transfer by A. Turner Holdings. He read the first paragraph quickly, then again, slower the second time. His color drained. Meanwhile, Daniel and Vanessa clinked glasses again. The band swelled, the chandeliers sparkled, and champagne flowed. But when Daniel raised his glass high, a drop of rosé champagne slipped from Vanessa's hand and splashed across his white cuff. The pink stain spread slowly, darkening into red. He cursed, dabbing at it. Vanessa laughed. "Relax. It's just a little spill." But Harris, watching from across the room, knew what it meant, a stain that would only grow. Later that night, Vanessa filmed herself on her phone in their new mansion, Emily's old house, repainted, redecorated, renamed. "Finally home," she said into the camera, twirling in the living room. Behind her, Daniel appeared, still in his tuxedo, holding another drink. "Emma's gone," he said, chuckling. "Dead weight off my back." Vanessa turned off the recording and faced him. "You should find your share of her father's estate," she said, voice smooth as honey but sharp as glass. "No one walks away from that kind of money." Her eyes glittered with hunger. Daniel smirked, drunk on victory. "Don't worry. I know exactly where to dig." Outside, thunder rolled. A storm was brewing again, not of rain, but of consequences. In a quiet office miles away, Mr. Harris dialed. A private number. "She's ready," he said simply. "Everything's in motion." The camera panned to the window behind him, where the city lights blinked like warning signs. And somewhere in a modest motel room, Emily Turner Cole opened her eyes to a new dawn, the beginning of the plan that would turn their celebration into their reckoning. The elevator doors slid open with a hiss, and Emily Turner Cole stepped into the buzzing office of Brook and Reed Consulting, a mid-sized firm in the heart of the city. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, and people hurried by with coffee cups and reports. To everyone else, she looked like any new assistant, quiet, polite, forgettable. But beneath the simple blouse and tied-back hair was the woman who owned nearly half the companies these employees worked with. She had traded silk for cotton, diamonds for simplicity, and her last name for anonymity. The world thought she had vanished. That was exactly how she wanted it. The intensity of her first day pulsed around her like electricity. Her supervisor, Mr. Leon Brooks, barked orders from across the floor. "You, the new one, file these invoices and cross-check the shipment reports." "Yes, sir," Emily replied calmly. Her voice didn't shake. She walked to her small desk near the window, sat down, and began typing. On the surface, she was an ordinary worker. But when her fingers touched the keyboard, her mind moved faster than any system in the room. She recognized names, contracts, and project codes tied to companies under A. Turner Holdings. Quietly, she was watching her father's empire in motion from behind enemy lines. Hours passed. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her. The city hum outside matching the rhythm of her thoughts. When her screen froze, she used the moment to glance around. That's when she met Clara Evans, a warm, curious co-worker in her late 20s, with gentle eyes and too much energy for such a gray office. "Hey," Clara said, leaning over. "You're new, right?" "I'm Clara. Been here 3 years. You'll get used to the chaos." Emily smiled faintly. "I'm sure I will." They chatted a bit between files about coffee preferences, about the city's traffic, but when Clara's gaze dropped to the plain gold ring on Emily's finger, her tone softened. "You're married?" Emily hesitated. "Was," she said finally. "I keep it because it reminds me what blindness looks like." Clara blinked, unsure what to say. Emily gave a polite smile, saving her from replying. Later that night, the office emptied. Only the hum of machines remained. Emily stayed behind, pretending to finish reports while actually reviewing confidential financial logs, several linked directly to Cole Builders, Daniel's company. Her lips pressed into a thin line. He had no idea she sat on the other side of his balance sheets now. As the clock struck 8, Clara poked her head back in. "You work late, huh?" Emily closed her laptop gently. Sometimes peace hides in silence. Clara smiled. "Well, see you tomorrow." When the lights finally dimmed and the room fell still, Emily opened her own secure folder, labeled A, Turner Holdings Internal Review. She scrolled through company data, cross-checking assets, listing mergers. One note caught her eye. Cole Builders pending acquisition, 90 days. Her hand stilled. Her father's plan was already moving ahead of schedule. Emily leaned back, eyes on the window where the city glowed below. "You built your house on my father's land, Daniel," she whispered, "and I'm coming to reclaim it." She powered off her screen and slipped the flash drive into her purse. Outside, thunder rumbled again, the same storm from her wedding night returning to the skyline. In another corner of the city, Vanessa stared at her phone, frowning as her bank notification flashed. Account restricted A. Turner Holdings pending review. And in that single alert, the first crack in Daniel's empire began to show. The flash of memory hit like lightning. One moment, Emily was staring at her reflection in the office window. The next, she was back in her old home, same marble floors, same suffocating silence. "Emily," Daniel's voice had thundered from across the hall. "You don't need to work. What do you even know about business? Leave that to men who understand numbers." She remembered standing there, her father's old accounting ledger in her hands. "Dad taught me everything," she had said softly. "He trusted me with the company's reports when I was 15. Daniel had laughed, cruel and careless. "Turner Logistics?" he scoffed. "That old man cargo business? It's a museum, not a company. You should be grateful I married you before it collapses." Then came the day he brought home bank papers, telling her to sign. "Just a small loan," he said. "For us." She didn't know then that us meant him. He took loans in her name, bought cars, lost money gambling on golf deals, and blamed her when creditors called. And still she had stayed, because she believed love could heal arrogance, because her father was still alive, and she didn't want him to see her marriage cracking. One night, as the argument reached its peak, Daniel's words became blades. "When your father's gone, you'll have nothing, Emily. Not even me." The memory froze there, Daniel's back turning, the door slamming shut, and her father's open ledger on the desk, numbers written in red ink bleeding across the page like warning signs. Back in the present, Emily blinked, breathing hard. The same ledger now rested in her bag, its seal unbroken. She whispered, "You were wrong, Daniel. I had everything the moment I lost you." Outside, a clock struck midnight. The 90th day had arrived. The clock struck midnight. A deep digital beep echoed through the quiet of Emily's small apartment. The glowing blue, digits on her laptop screen shifted from 11:59 p.m. to 12 a.m. And just like that, the 90 days were over. For a moment, everything around her went still, the hum of the fridge, the ticking wall clock, even her heartbeat seemed to pause. She had been waiting for this night since her father's funeral. 90 days of silence, 90 days of patience, 90 days of letting the wolves dance, thinking the shepherd was gone. Now, the silence broke. Emily exhaled slowly and opened the secured folder labeled Turner Consolidation Protocol. The screen asked for her signature key. She inserted the encrypted flash drive, the same one her father's lawyer, Mr. Harris, had handed her with trembling hands. "Directive authorization required," the system prompted. Her hand didn't shake. She typed her name, Emily Turner Cole. Then she clicked execute. The computer came alive with a roar of data. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, green text spilling across black screens like electric rain. A digital map unfolded. Turner Logistics, Turner Holdings, Brook and Reed Consulting, Cole Builders, Wright Investments, all major subsidiaries connected by silver threads like veins of power flowing into one heart. One by one, ownership tags began to shift. Owner, a Turner Holdings sole beneficiary, Emily Turner Cole. Her breath hitched. Then the system confirmed it with a soft tone. Directive activated. Consolidation complete. For the first time, the world's corporate databases reflected the truth: she owned everything. Even Daniel's company, Cole Builders, which had been funded quietly by her father years ago, now sat under her control. The empire Daniel mocked as Old Man Cargo was now the foundation of his own undoing. The monitor glowed against her face, the light catching the faint tears she didn't bother to wipe away. They weren't tears of pain this time. They were release. She leaned back, whispering to the empty room. You built an empire on my father's bricks, Daniel. Time to repossess. Outside, the city slept. But inside corporate servers across the country, automated systems stirred awake. Ownership notifications pinged one after another, like distant thunder rolling toward a storm. Executives, managers, and investors would wake to find the world had shifted overnight. Emails queued themselves in inboxes. Notice of consolidation, effective immediately. Financial networks began rerouting control codes to her name, and somewhere, in the dark corners of Daniel's mansion, his phone buzzed with unread alerts he didn't yet understand. Emily closed the laptop gently, as if sealing a spell. She walked to the window, watching the city lights shimmer far below. It wasn't just victory, it was justice disguised as patience. Her father's words echoed faintly in her memory. Test hearts before you share crowns. She smiled faintly. You'd be proud tonight, Dad. Then her phone buzzed a Barty. Single notification from Mr. Harris. Subject: they'll notice by morning. Emily looked at the message, her eyes calm but sharp. Good, she whispered. Let them. In the distance, thunder rolled again. The storm was no longer coming, it had begun. And by morning, Daniel's empire would wake under a new name. Hers. The sound of the office door slamming echoed through the quiet night. Papers fluttered. Computer screens glowed like restless eyes. Emily stood in the center of the private suite on the top floor of a building she technically owned, but no one knew it yet. Across the room, Ethan Brooks, a sharp, quiet man in his early 30s, scribbled numbers across a glass wall with a blue marker. His sleeves were rolled up, his movements quick but precise. You see this? He said, circling a red figure. This account, Cole Investments LLC, was registered under your name, Emily, but the signatures are forged. At the table behind him, Linda Carter, her father's former legal strategist, calm, experienced, the kind of woman who never raised her voice unless it mattered, flipped through a folder of contracts. And here, she added, he used those fake signatures to take loans worth millions, claiming they were for joint business ventures. The debts were redirected to your dormant trust fund. Emily's hands tightened at her sides, but her face remained unreadable. So, she said softly, he borrowed money in my name to fund his empire and then called me worthless. Ethan nodded grimly. And the bribes he paid officials through shell accounts tied to your inheritance. If the banks investigate, they'll see your name first. Linda closed the folder and looked up. If you wanted revenge, Emily, you already have enough to destroy him. Legally, financially, publicly. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the servers filled the room like the low growl of a storm waiting to break. Then Emily stepped forward, her reflection overlapping Ethan's notes on the glass wall, her face superimposed over the web of numbers, arrows, and lies. Not yet, she said. Ethan frowned. Not yet? She met his gaze. If we strike now, he'll say it's manipulation. He'll hide behind Vanessa, behind sympathy. No, let him rise higher. Let him think he's untouchable. The higher the stage, the louder the fall. Linda gave a small, knowing smile. You're your father's daughter. Emily's expression softened for a heartbeat. He taught me patience is sharper than anger. Ethan uncapped another marker and drew a large circle at the center of the diagram. So what's the plan? Emily took the marker from his hand and wrote 2 words inside the circle. Public reckoning. The words gleamed under the light. She turned to the others. We'll collect evidence quietly, secure statements, freeze backup accounts, and prepare the legal triggers. When the time comes, Daniel will expose himself. We'll just make sure the world is watching. Ethan nodded slowly. Let him build his stage. And we, Emily finished, will choose the spotlight. Linda reached for her phone. Then I'll make a few calls. It's time some people started paying attention again. Emily looked out the window at the skyline, where the storm clouds gathered over the city. The lights of Daniel's construction towers blinked faintly in the distance, his pride glowing against the dark. She whispered, almost to herself, "Every empire looks beautiful right before it cracks." Behind her, Ethan's phone buzzed an alert from one of Daniel's accounts. "Emily," he said, turning pale, "you'll want to see this." She turned slowly, eyes narrowing, and the moment she looked at the screen, the next storm began. "What do you mean they pulled out?" Daniel's voice roared through the marble hallway, echoing off glass walls and expensive silence. His phone was pressed so hard to his ear it looked like he might crush it. "No, you listen to me. Cole Builders doesn't delay payments. We're the biggest contract in the city. Hello? Hello?" The call cut off. Daniel hurled the phone across the room. It hit the floor with a crack. Vanessa flinched from where she stood by the window, her reflection pale against the night sky. Another call buzzed on the desk. "A supplier." Daniel snatched it up. "Don't you dare pull your trucks. This is a misunderstanding. We have funding secured." He froze, his jaw locking. "What do you mean the account's frozen?" Vanessa turned slowly. "Frozen?" He slammed the phone down, running a hand through his hair. "Just a glitch. Emily's broke. She can't touch us. There's no way she could." But his words didn't match his eyes. For the first time, there was fear in them. Vanessa crossed her arms. "Then why are our suppliers walking out? Why did the banks flag our accounts?" "Something's wrong, Daniel," he snapped. "Don't start." "I'm not starting," she said sharply. "I'm watching you panic." For a long moment, only the rain outside filled the silence. Then Vanessa walked toward his desk. Amid the chaos, open invoices, crumpled checks, half-empty glasses of whiskey, one paper caught her attention. It had slipped halfway under a folder. She tugged it free. The logo at the top read, A. Turner Holdings Parent Company Consolidation Notice. Her brow furrowed. "What's this?" Daniel reached for it. "Nothing. Some merger nonsense." But she stepped back, scanning the fine print. Her hands trembled slightly. "Daniel, this document says all Cole Builders shares were reclassified under Turner Holdings 3 days ago. How is that even possible?" Daniel's face darkened. "It's a trick. A fake. Probably something Emily's lawyer cooked up." Vanessa read the line again, her pulse racing. "Parent company, A. Turner. Holdings. Authorized signatory, Emily Turner Cole." The paper felt heavier in her hands. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "A. Turner. That's her father's name." She looked up slowly. "Daniel, what does the A stand for?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Vanessa's fingers clenched the paper too tightly. The edges dug into her skin. She read it one last time, slower, as if the truth might change if she gave it mercy. "A, for Alice?" she muttered, shaking her head. "No, A for..." Her words stopped cold. Her face drained of color. Across the room, the lights flickered as thunder rolled outside. Daniel finally spoke, voice low, uneasy. "Vanessa, put it down." But she didn't move. She folded the paper carefully, too carefully, as if it might bite, and slipped it into her purse. Without looking at him, she said quietly, "I think you should pray I'm wrong, Daniel. Because if I'm right, she owns everything." The storm outside cracked, like a warning. In another part of the city, Emily closed her briefcase and checked her watch. "It's time," she said softly. And as Vanessa's car sped into the night, the world began connecting dots Daniel had spent his life ignoring. Daniel slammed his office door open so hard that the handle dented the wall. His assistant jumped, dropping a folder. "Sir?" He ignored her and marched to his desk, his tie half loosened, face pale with exhaustion and anger. The morning had already brought enough chaos, frozen accounts, angry calls, contracts collapsing, but now there was an envelope sitting squarely in the middle of his desk. Thick ivory paper, gold seal, his name printed in bold. He tore it open. Inside was a single card that gleamed beneath the light. Turner Legacy Foundation, Gala Honoring, Philanthropy and Leadership in Business CEO, Emily Turner Cole. For a moment, the room seemed to stop breathing. Then Daniel laughed. Loud, mocking, desperate laughter that made even his assistant glance at the door as if she might escape. "Emily?" he scoffed. "CEO? This must be some PR stunt." She couldn't run a bakery, let alone a foundation. He tossed the invitation aside, smirking. She can't even afford a dress. Vanessa appeared at the door, her tone strained. Maybe you shouldn't underestimate her. He turned sharply. Don't start, Vanessa. Her eyes flicked to the invitation. It's real. Everyone in the business circle got one. The mayor's attending, the press, investors, even my father. Daniel's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, but only a heartbeat. Good. Then they can all watch her humiliate herself. He poured whiskey into a glass and lifted it like a toast. Here's to ghosts pretending to be queens. Cut. A sleek black limousine rolled to a stop in front of the grand entrance of the Turner Legacy Hall that night. Spotlights swept the red carpet. The crowd stirred as a woman stepped out tall, poised, draped in a black velvet gown that caught every flash of light like midnight silk. It was Emily Turner Cole, the same gown color Vanessa had worn to mock her at the wedding. A mirror of humiliation turned into quiet power. The cameras went wild. Click, click, click. Reporters shouted questions, but Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her calm was her statement. Her silence was the sound of control. Behind her, Mr. Harris followed at a respectful distance, nodding to the press. He whispered, "You're trending already." Emily smiled faintly. "Let them talk. I'm only here for the truth." As she walked toward the entrance, flashbulbs burst like fireworks. The crowd parted. Every movement, every glance was deliberate. She wasn't the broken woman leaving her house with a single suitcase anymore. She was the storm returning in heels. From inside the building, the sound of music drifted, a soft piano piece her father used to play. For the first time in months, her heartbeat matched the rhythm of peace instead of pain. But across town, in Daniel's penthouse, he poured another drink and smirked at the TV. "Enjoy your moment, Emily," he said to the screen. "Tomorrow I'll remind you who runs this city." He didn't notice the news ticker at the bottom of the broadcast quietly change. Breaking. Turner Holdings finalizes multi-company merger, Cole Builders included. The screen faded to black as thunder rumbled in the distance. And by morning, Daniel Cole would learn that the gala wasn't just a celebration. It was a trap waiting to spring. The doors burst open so hard that they slammed against the walls. Daniel Cole stormed into the sleek, glass-walled boardroom, his tie crooked, his eyes wild. "Who called this emergency meeting?" he barked. "I run Cole Builders, not whatever circus this is." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Papers rustled. Someone coughed but didn't answer. A large screen at the end of the table flickered with the logo of Turner Holdings. Daniel froze. "What the hell is this?" Mr. Grant, the senior chairman, cleared his throat. "You might want to take a seat, Mr. Cole." "I'll stand," Daniel snapped. "Now tell me why I'm here before I—" The doors opened again. Every head turned. Emily Turner Cole stepped in, calm, controlled, dressed in a white suit that caught the morning light pouring through the windows. No makeup for revenge, no arrogance, just poise. She carried a folder under one arm and a flash drive in her hand. Daniel's jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me." Emily met his eyes without flinching. "Good morning, Daniel," he sneered. "You think you can walk in here and—" She raised her hand slightly, and the boardroom fell silent. Even the clock seemed to pause. "Mr. Grant," she said softly, "if you could play the file." The lights dimmed. The screen behind her lit up corporate charts, transfer, documents, and digital stamps bearing her father's signature. Turner Logistics, Turner Global, Cole Builders, Wright Holdings. Each name blinked as it appeared, followed by one title in bold. Parent company Turner Holdings. Sole owner, Emily Turner Cole. The room gasped. Daniel's voice cracked. "That's impossible. You forged this." Emily laid the folder on the table, opening it one page at a time. "Every merger your company relied on, every loan, every asset was funded through Turner subsidiaries. You didn't build your empire, Daniel. You borrowed it from me." He lunged toward the folder. But Mr. Grant stopped him with a firm hand. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," Emily continued, calm but sharp as glass. "And since your current company is registered under Turner's trust fund, all fraudulent transactions are now under review." She clicked the remote. The next slide filled the screen. Vanessa Wright's falsified loan requests with her digital signature, all. routed through Daniel's private account. Silence. No one met his eyes. Someone's pen slipped and clattered onto the table. Daniel's voice broke into a whisper. "You set me up." Emily leaned forward. "No, Daniel. You set yourself up. You didn't just marry your mistress, you married your downfall." The words hit harder than any slap. For a long, unbearable second, there was nothing but the faint hum of the projector. Then Emily gathered her documents, closing the folder neatly. "Effective immediately," she said. "Cole Builders and all its assets revert to A. Turner Holdings. Security will handle the rest." As she turned to leave, Daniel shouted after her, "You can't do this." She paused at the door. "I already did." Outside, flashes from the waiting press cameras reflected through the glass like lightning. "Mr." Grant whispered to another board member, "Prepare the statement. She wants it public." And as Emily stepped into the hallway, her phone buzzed a message from Linda Carter. "Media ready. He'll face the cameras next." Emily smiled faintly. The reckoning had just begun. Cole. Cole. "Is it true you falsified loan documents?" The shouts hit like gunfire as Daniel was pushed through the revolving doors of Cole Builders' headquarters. Flashbulbs exploded in every direction. The morning air was sharp, filled with sirens, shouts, and the hum of cameras. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones raised like spears. Security struggled to keep the crowd back as police officers moved in formation. "Move aside," an officer barked. Daniel spun, his face flushed with disbelief. "This is a mistake. I built this company. She tricked you all." The microphone surged forward. "Are you saying Mrs. Cole set you up?" Someone shouted. "I'm saying she doesn't deserve." Before he could finish, an officer cuffed his wrists. The sound of metal locking echoed like thunder. The crowd gasped. From the top of the steps, Emily stood still. Her white suit gleamed in the morning light, her expression calm, unreadable. Next to her stood Linda Carter, her legal strategist, quietly speaking into her phone. On Emily's other side was Ethan Brooks, the financial analyst who had traced Daniel's fraud. Both flanked her, like calm anchors in the storm. Down below, a black car pulled up. Vanessa's father, Mr. Wright, stepped out. The cameras turned instantly, flashing like lightning. Mr. Wright's face was pale and grim. He didn't look at Daniel. He simply walked to Emily and extended his hand. "All my investments are withdrawn from Cole Builders immediately," he said quietly. "I'll be moving them to Turner Holdings instead. Your father would have been proud, Emily." She nodded once, voice soft but steady. "Thank you, Mr. Wright." Daniel's head jerked up. "You can't just Mr. Wright, please." But the older man didn't even glance at him. He turned and got back, turned to his car. The crowd erupted again. A young reporter at the front called out, "Mrs. Cole! Mrs. Cole! What will you do now?" Emily turned her gaze toward her. For a moment, everything quieted. Even the flashing lights seemed to slow. "I'll restore what my father built," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the plaza. "And this time, it will be built with integrity." Her words hung in the air like a promise. Daniel thrashed against the officers, shouting her name. "Emily, you think this ends here? You'll regret." The officers pulled him back. The crowd's noise swallowed his words. Emily turned away, calm as a closing door. The elevator behind her opened with a soft chime. She stepped in with Linda and Ethan. As the doors slid shut, Daniel's voice echoed faintly from outside, broken, desperate. "Emily!" The elevator doors met with a quiet click. Silence. For the first time in years, the building seemed to exhale. Ethan let out a shaky breath. "It's over." Emily's reflection in the steel door didn't smile. "Not yet," she whispered. "The storm doesn't end when the thunder stops. It ends when the sky clears." Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. It's about your father's trust." Her eyes lifted, calm but alert. The next storm was already forming. Rain crashed against the marble steps of Turner headquarters, each drop a cold reminder of what had been washed away. Cameras hissed under umbrellas, and the city that once praised Daniel Cole now watched him crumble in real time. He was kneeling, his expensive suit soaked, his tie hanging limp, his eyes hollow. The man who once barked orders and broke hearts now trembled beneath the storm. "Emily!" he shouted hoarsely, voice cracking through the rain. Please, just listen to me. Security stood back, uncertain. The crowd murmured, half in pity, half in fascination. The tabloids would call it the fall of an empire. But right now, it was just a man broken by his own greed. The heavy glass doors opened. Emily stepped out, sheltered under a black umbrella held by Linda Carter. Her white coat shimmered faintly beneath the rain, a quiet symbol of calm amid chaos. For a moment, she simply looked at him. The rain distorted her reflection in the puddle at his knees, once his wife, now his judge. Daniel crawled forward a few steps, hands shaking. Please, Emily, I made mistakes. I let ambition ruin everything. I was stupid blind. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I just need a chance to make it right. Emily's eyes softened for a brief second, but only a second. Then her voice came, steady, low, and clear. You didn't make mistakes, Daniel. You made choices. He blinked, confused. She stepped closer, rain streaking past her umbrella like silver threads. Mistakes can be fixed, she continued. Choices define you. And this, she gestured gently to the soaked, kneeling man before her, is who you chose to be. Daniel's breath hitched. Please, Emily. I loved you once. Her gaze didn't waver. No, she said softly. You loved control. You loved winning. But love? She shook her head slowly. Love doesn't humiliate, steal, or destroy. It builds. The rain grew heavier, drumming like applause from heaven itself. Behind her, Ethan Brooks stood at the door, watching quietly. Linda gave a small nod, signaling that it was time. Emily lowered the umbrella slightly and looked down one last time. I hope one day you understand what real wealth is. It isn't money. It's peace. She turned and walked toward the doors. The glass reflected her back straight, strong, unyielding. The guards opened the entrance as the storm raged harder. Emily! Daniel screamed, the word cracking into the downpour. But she didn't turn around. The doors closed with a soft thud. The rain washed over the steps, mixing with tears he would never admit to shedding. Inside, Emily stood by the lobby window for a moment, watching the blurred shape of Daniel outside. She exhaled slowly, not in triumph, but release. The storm outside began to calm, but inside her phone vibrated again. Another message from the same unknown number. Your father's will has a hidden clause. Meet me tonight. Come alone. Emily's heart paused. The rain outside may have stopped, but another storm was already waiting in the dark. Applause thundered through the Turner Global Auditorium. Bright lights spilled across the polished stage where Emily Turner Cole stood at the podium, a soft smile touching her lips. Behind her, a large banner read, The Arthur Turner Foundation, Empowering Women, Restoring Dignity. Flashes went off from every direction, reporters capturing what the media had begun to call the Phoenix of Turner. But Emily didn't hear the noise. Her mind was on her father, the man who'd taught her how to build quietly, observe deeply, and act only when truth had weight. She gripped the podium, steady, calm. My father believed strength meant protecting others, she said, her voice carrying through the hall. He taught me that power without kindness is just noise. Today, we turn that lesson into action. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Rows of women, single mothers, small business owners, scholarship recipients wiped tears as they clapped. Emily stepped away from the stage and walked down the aisle toward the new foundation boardroom. Each step echoed with closure and purpose. The chaos of her old life, the betrayal, the courtroom, the storm had been replaced by calm. But it wasn't peace born of escape. It was peace earned through fire. Inside the boardroom, sunlight streamed through wide windows. On the far wall, newly installed, hung a brass plaque engraved with her father's words. Power without kindness is just noise. Emily brushed her fingers over the letters, tracing the grooves like they were the outline of his voice. On the table sat the first scholarship application, a young widow seeking to open a repair shop. Emily smiled. Approve it, she said softly. Ethan Brooks entered with a folder in hand. Everything's finalized, ma'am. The first 20 grants will be announced by next week. Good, Emily replied, turning toward the window. The city skyline stretched out below, alive and busy, indifferent yet full of stories like hers once was. Let's make sure they all get a fair start. No one should have to beg for what they've earned. Ethan nodded, leaving quietly. For a long moment, Emily stood alone, looking at the framed photograph beside her CEO placard, her father, smiling faintly, hand on her shoulder from years ago. The image seemed to glow under the light, as if his approval lingered in the air. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, older somehow, but not hardened, just certain. Then, in a low murmur, half a confession, half a promise, she whispered, "You taught me to see wolves before they bite. I just learned to let them choke on their own hunger." The wind outside picked up, fluttering the corner of the banner still visible through the open door. Emily turned off the lights, her heels clicking softly on the marble as she walked out. The camera lingered on the quote above the table, "Power without kindness is just noise." A single beam of sunlight landed on the framed photo beside her nameplate, illuminating her father's smile. Then, as the room fell silent, her phone buzzed once on the table. Unknown number. "There's one thing your father never told you." The screen faded to black.